Jessica Hepburn spent £70,000 on 11 rounds of unsuccessful IVF.
When I opened up Ancestry, I had over 3,000 hits.
All of these random names were popping up, and it said close family.
We all matched the name Cline.
I think it was some sick experiment for him.
Most of us have blonde hair, blue eyes.
It was almost like
This perfect Aryan clan. It's disgusting.
Its oldest son, Josh, works in the field of genetics.
Strange things started happening.
No surprise that on a free night, he chose to watch Our Father on Netflix.
Dr. Cline was the best infertility doctor in Indianapolis.
Our Father, the true story of Indiana doctor Donald Cline. How he used his own sperm to impregnate women without their knowledge. And how dozens of siblings figured out he was their father.
Yeah.
Josh instantly felt connected.
It really hit me because that's what I do every single morning.
Taking medicine for an autoimmune disease which affects just 8% or less of the population. He ordered a 23andMe kit before the film was even over. Little did the 6'4" former Division I volleyball player know that decision would drastically change his life.
I walk around.
The woman he watched in that movie turned out to be his real-life sister.
Ohio woman suing a sperm bank for medical malpractice. The reason, she became pregnant with sperm from a black donor.
We love her more to this day. She's made us the people that we are. Never trade it for the world.
Despite that love, Cramblett is suing the Midwest Sperm Bank in Downers Grove, Illinois, for medical malpractice. Cramblett says she thought she was being inseminated with a white man's sperm so the baby would look like her partner, Amanda Zinkin.
It wasn't as though she was calling in September of 2011 ordering a pizza. She was calling and ordering donor sperm.
You cannot just say, oops, I'm sorry, be happy you got a child, and walk away from this.
This woman went to a sperm bank to start a family. She thought she'd picked the perfect donor. She was told he had a near genius IQ and that he looked like Tom Cruise. But when she found out who the donor really was, she says her heart dropped.
But if you think the donor's profile sounds too good to be true, you're right. It was all a lie. Donor 9623 wasn't a healthy, highly educated man. He's a college dropout named Chris Agelis, who's been hospitalized for schizophrenia and spent time behind bars for burglary.
The revelation all these years later has left Wendy and her son shaken.
My heart just dropped. First you're hit with a shock, and then you don't want to believe it.
Alex now worries that, like the father he has never met, he may become schizophrenic, which tends to be hereditary.
High demand for specific ethnicities: Asian, East Indian, Jewish, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern.
I just very much had the altruistic piece of me triggered.
And she's going to look at that and say, that's a lot of money.
Women ages 21 to 29, they're not thinking about their fertility or risks.
Eggs are being bought with all of the risks that follow from that.
If you're tall, attractive, physically fit, and have a desire to help, and what person doesn't want to see themselves that way?
Knowing Cline as his biological father changes nothing, but it changes everything. He's destroyed a lot of people's lives. Daily, he feels the physical pain of the genetic autoimmune disorder he shares with his older brother, and the pain of knowing a man, a doctor, his parents trusted, shattered everything he thought he knew about who he is. But he is determined to not let it destroy him.
To see your daughter, who's not pregnant, and stomach look like she's 6 months pregnant, it was awful.
And I'm mad at the fact that people are out there wanting to take advantage of someone who is young or healthy and wanting to help.
And it says right here, make a difference today, donate your eggs. It makes it sound like it's this, act of benevolence.
My dad is probably one of the strongest men I've ever met. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you both.
Both Kylie and Calla suffered a stroke. Alexandra lost an ovary. Cindy almost bled to death. And Linda and Latoya were both hospitalized with ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome.
Hey guys, it's me here, Lavender here, and I'm back today, and today I'm doing a political activism video, the pure evil, the fertility/sperm bank files. Deep dive into that, so let's get started into this true crime case daily. So, fertility doctors use their own sperm to get patients pregnant. The children want justice. Netflix Our Father tells the tale of an Annapolis fertility clinic whose doctor who impregnated nearly 100 of his patients with his own sperm after lying to them that the sources were anonymous donors or their husbands. Cline's activity occurred during the 1970s and 1980s, long before DNA tests like 23andMe became popular. Once these tests became available, of course, it was only a matter of time before the new technology would prove what happened. One of Cline's secret children, Rebecca Blanchard, took a 23andMe DNA test and discovered that she had 7 half-siblings. She reached out to them and soon learned the truth. Their shared father was their parents' trusted fertility doctor. As more and more people added to the DNA 23andMe's database, the size of Cline's progeny grew even larger. It stood at 94 at the documentary's release, but that number may now be significantly larger and higher. The doctor pleaded guilty, paid a $500 fine, and received 2 suspended sentences. He served actually no time in jail. Another victim of capitalism in 2019, Tracy Portugal, took a home DNA test looking for answers about her medical history after some recent unexplained medical issues. When nothing of note came up on her mother's side, her father's side was largely a mystery. He died when she was 16 years old, and his family was either deceased or estranged. But when Portugal, 45 years old, got the results of her test, she was confused. She didn't recognize any of the names listed on her father's side. When she questioned her mom, she learned that she eventually confessed that she and Portugal's father had struggled to get pregnant and sought help from a fertility doctor, believing this anonymous pre-med donor was her biological father. Portugal started looking up the social medias of family relations highlighted by the 23andMe DNA ancestry results test. A friend helped her use Ancestry.com to create a family tree on her paternal side. When they found the name of the person they believed to be the donor, it looked eerily familiar. It was the same name as the fertility doctor. Instead of using the donor sperm like he had said, Portugal now believes the doctor simply left the room, ejaculated into a cup, and proceeded to artificially inseminate her mother with his own sperm. Portugal would soon learn 2 more disturbing facts. One was far from alone. There were dozens of cases of doctors who would use their own sperm on patients without their consent. In fact, in 1987 survey by the Federal Office of Technology Assessment, 2% of fertility doctors admitted to using their own sperm on patients. Second, and most disturbingly, Portugal had learned there's no law against this. Only 5 states have a fertility fraud laws in which, according to the Society for Assisted Reproductive Technology, made it illegal for a doctor to use or implant reproductive material without the patient's consent. California, Indiana, Texas, Colorado, and Florida. The oldest law from California was written in direct response to doctors who implanted the wrong embryos in their patients' homes. Fertility fraud laws in Indiana, Texas, and Colorado have all passed within the last 2 years as a direct action and direct responses to doctors using their own sperm to impregnate patients without their consent. Other biological children of the doctors have found themselves in the same position. When Paul, whose real name has been changed to protect his identity and his privacy, found out through a 23andMe test that his biological father was his mother's fertility doctor, he wanted to take legal action, but the doctor, Edwin Delves, had a history of heart problems and died of congestive heart failure in 2002. Paul, 37, believes that his high cholesterol and other heart-related issues are likely inherited from Delves. The doctor's obituary note that when he was in his 30s, he underwent his first triple bypass surgery. When Paul contacted his attorney about suing the doctor's estate, he was told he didn't personally have a case, but his mother did. The fertility industry is set to nearly $41 billion by 2026. Is dangerously glossing over what science tells us these treatments can and can't offer. African Americans have double the rate of miscarriages than white individuals going IVF and undergoing IVF. The patients who have obesity report experiencing weight-related stigma while seeking fertility treatment. Heteronormative definition of fertility as an inability to conceive after a year of sex between a man and woman exclude many lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer plus community individuals from insurance coverage for egg freezing and IVF. There could be problems with the process, such as incident that happened. A freezer malfunction at an Ohio fertility clinic may have destroyed 4,000 hundreds of patients' chances at having biological children. It is estimated again that 4,000 eggs and embryos were lost, and devastated families spoke out about their grief in a lawsuit. Some create a memorial at a cemetery for the 4,000 eggs and embryos lost. Women 40 or older with little hope of conceiving a baby are being exploited by greedy IVF clinics. The chair of the UK's fertility watchdog has warned. Older women were being targeted by increasingly aggressive sales tactics, that some clinics are being less honest with their clients about the possibility of success, and that some are charging 4 times as much as they should. At up to £20,000 per cycle, or $26,000 in American dollars, it is very easy to exploit people by the fact that they're desperate and you've got the technology which they want, which may not work. Again, African Americans have double the rate of miscarriage of white individuals undergoing IVF. Meanwhile, advertisers are flooding social media with slogans like, "Fertility means freedom. When you freeze your eggs, you freeze time." Research presented at the American Society for Reproductive Medicine conference last September found that this flavor of marketing is common among the top egg freezing companies, but they are selling a sense of control that doesn't really exist. To say that an egg freezing stops time is a gross oversimplification of, as rates of successful live births often run well under 50% for a single round of IVF, which usually costs around $23,000. The cruel cost of the human egg trade. British women and American women who desperately want to have babies are being sent to Eastern Europe and Cyprus. Their clinics are thriving on the profits of fertility tourism, but donors in the egg harvest run hidden health risks at the expense of, all of this. A victim of capitalism story from Europe, the victim Savinia didn't know is that donating eggs is not a straightforward matter like donating sperm, like a sperm bank. It can be a lengthy, painful, and potentially dangerous procedure involving the injection of a powerful drug known as follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH. Medical experts believe 1% of women undergoing this can suffer serious side effects known as ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome that in extreme cases can be proved fatal and cause death. One leading British fertility expert, Adam, professor of reproductive medicine at Leeds General Hospital, believes the fact that Savinia, the victim, produced 40 eggs is evidence that she was being hyperstimulated by the clinic and her health was being put at risk. At no time did the medical staff at the Kiev clinic explain anything to Sylvania or give her any counseling on the psychological impact of donating eggs. Sylvania found out she was being injected with hormones only on the 4th time she had to be put on a drip. She was told the injections were to clean her blood. Other complications included missing her period for 2 months and stomach pains. An investigation by the Observer had revealed a bargaining global trade in women's eggs, where infertile British women who cannot find a donor in the UK will pay thousands of pounds for the chance of finding one overseas. Between 1996 and 1999, an Israeli doctor named Zion bin Rafal began stealing eggs from his patients by doping them with hormones without their consent. In one case, he stole 181 eggs from a single unknown donor and implemented them in 34 of his paying patients. In the course of his tenure, 13 women are hospitalized because of massive doses of hormones he administered. This is not to mention the other issues that already plague the assisted reproductive services arena. We've recently learned that many fertility doctors offer extra and unnecessary procedures that do not boost success rates, but pad the bill and make the bill go higher. Add-ons such as epidermal scratching tack on thousands of dollars to the IVF treatments that already reach 5 figures but offer no benefit when it comes to chances of having a baby. How women anxious to have a baby are being exploited for profit. Get a Drip, a wellness company offering affordable IV vitamin drips and booster shots, has withdrawn a product known as a fertility IV, from the sale after the British Pregnancy Advisory Service said there was no evidence this treatment could improve fertility in any way. The drip was advertised at costing around £250. The only supplements medically recommended for women trying to conceive are folic acid and vitamin D. More to the point, how could the wellness industry have stooped to such a exploitative low? It is not hard to see how a woman who's anxious she may not conceive may see something like that, like the fertility drip, on social media feed or on social media sites and be seduced by the idea. The company boasts about having qualified doctors and nurses among its healthcare professionals and lists lots of scientific-sounding stuff. Capitalizing on this triangle of fear and self-doubt women live with is nothing new. Now on to the sperm bank part of this, largely and highly unregulated, but that could soon change as lawsuits multiply in this type of industry. Couple sue sperm bank after sketchy donor details emerged 7 years later. 7 years later, after the son was born, a couple discovered that the sperm donor that they used his sperm from is schizophrenic, dropped out of college, and had been arrested. He was good on paper. That's why couple Angela Collins and Margaret Elizabeth Hansen say they chose donor 9623 to be the biological father of their child. Then last June, almost 7 years after the fact, after she gave birth to a son conceived with 9623 sperm, the woman got a batch of emails from the sperm bank that unexpectedly and perhaps mistakenly included the donor's name. That clue set them on a motion and a mission that quickly revealed that the donor is schizophrenic, dropped out of college, and had been arrested for burglary. They said in a lawsuit filed in Atlanta, Collins and Hasten said the Atlanta Sperm Bank promoted the donor sperm, saying it came from a man with an IQ of 160, an undergraduate degree in neuroscience, and a master's degree in artificial intelligence. But he had none of those things. Who was pursuing a PhD in neuroscience engineering. The woman who lived in Ontario, Canada, sued the company and its parent company, sperm bank employees, and the man who said he was a misrepresented donor, the biological father of at least 36 children, according to the lawsuit. Other families have sued sperm banks also after having donors conceive children who wound up with a variety of genetic disorders and mental disorders. In many of these cases, the sperm banks said they routinely test sperm and exclude donors who could pass along genes that cause genetic diseases that could be passed down. In those instances, families have grounds for accusing the sperm banks of fraud and negligence. Many are outraged by the story of a couple suing a sperm bank for mistakenly providing her with sperm from a black donor instead of a white donor as she requested. Jennifer Cramblett, who is white, later gave birth to a biracial daughter, warranted a lawsuit against the sperm bank. She said that they filed a lawsuit because they requested a white baby and got the wrong sperm. So they are suing so they can move to a better city with more cultures around so their child can relate. According to FDA regulators, sperm donors are supposed to be tested for major diseases such as HIV, but a series of recent cases have found clusters of children fathered by the same donor, resulting in significantly higher than average cases of hereditary problems and conditions, including heart defects. Besides the recent cases involving fathers with unexpected hereditary conditions and problems, there is another very real health concern that few mention publicly because of the ick factor involved. The greater number of children created by anonymous parents and donors, the greater the possibility for accidental incest and maybe incest children, and crazy as it sounds, this possibility has come up before. Medical News Today reports that the American Society of Reproductive Medicine recommends restricting conceptives to 25 births per 800,000 person population. ABC News has even profiled a man who fathered at least 150 kids via sperm donation. He eventually advised by one bank that he had fathered too many children locally and then began donating elsewhere. Another man believes he fathered closer to 400. These numbers may sound extreme, but in the Wild West of sperm donation, they're not actually unheard of. One donation can result in as many as 25 children alone. So if someone donates multiple times per month, it doesn't take long to creep past the 100 mark if all donations result in successful pregnancies. For this very reason and others, some countries actually limit the number of offspring a donor can create. In another true crime case, a victim of capitalism named Paul was in his 80s when someone called to say she was his daughter, conceived in a fertility clinic with his sperm. The only problem, he never donated any. For 40 years, Catherine Simpson, the woman in the story, her father had died and he had a vasectomy. There was a dispute over his will, and that led to the mother to call and tell her something that made the ground dissolve beneath her feet. George had had a vasectomy long before Catherine was actually born. She and her brother had been donor conceived in Harley Street using the sperm of two different anonymous men. George was not her biological father. At the end of it, she would uncover a scandal involving ruthless doctors, stolen sperm, exploited patients, and a community of donor-conceived people in a race against the time for truth and justice. They were told the sperm donors were medical students from a hospital in London. That made her feel better. It came from good stock. I think that's how they sold it to my dad. She turned detective, sourcing the internet for information about Harley Street fertility clinics in the late 60s. One name kept coming up, Dr. Reynold H. Boyd. She had a direct parent-child DNA match. Her biological father's name was there, and it wasn't Ronald H. Boyd. He was not a medical student either. Her father was Paul Watts, a former removals man from Essex who had never donated sperm in his entire life. Her biological father had been another of Boyd's patients. Paul and his wife, Janet, whose real names have been changed to protect their identity in the article, has private fertility treatment at his East London clinic in 1969. Paul's sperm has been checked. Somehow, the sample he gave was used to create Catherine. They were playing a game of people's lives at the clinic, Catherine